Next thing you know, we signed up for their big program, 27,000 US. And that's when we really got introduced to all the possibilities in real estate. So it really opened our eyes. And within 18 months, we owned 50 doors and we're making 5,000 a month in passive income. And we loved it. We just realized then how much real estate could really do for people.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, it's Augustino. Sales is a powerful tool to earn money, but creating wealth builds security for the future. Now, the one way that we do this is by focusing on leveraging real estate. And today's guest understands this. She helps people create passive income and builds wealth through investing in real estate. Now, with over 70 million in assets acquired over the last 8 years, and primarily with other people's money, she helps other people become financially free. Now, she's the author of Multiple Ways to Wealth, Creating Your Prosperous Lifestyle. And she applies this knowledge to have a very deep understanding of what investors want in a deal. Now, as a former financial advisor, she helps connect investors with everyday people who want to create true passive income for the long term. Now, with all of that, I'd like to welcome Edna to the show. Edna, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, excellent. Now, if you like what Edna has to say, you can reach her via her contact page at ednakeep.com. Okay, Edna, go ahead and tell listeners a little bit more about your background and about your journey.
Sure. Well, we started in real estate in 2007, so it's actually a little bit more than 8 years now. We didn't intend to make it a full-time career. I really liked being a financial advisor, and I was making good money at it, and I was working, a reasonable amount of hours. I wasn't overdoing it. And clients actually started to tell me that they wanted to take money out of their mutual funds and put it in real estate. And really? Why? I just did not understand real estate at all. And so we went to one of the classes, Robert Kiyosaki's classes, and next thing you know, we signed up for their big program, 27,000 US. And that's when we really got introduced to all the possibilities in real estate. So it really opened our eyes. And within 18 months, we owned 50 doors and we're making 5,000 a month in passive income. And we loved it. We just realized then how much real estate could really do for people. So much so, Augustino, that I couldn't even sell mutual funds anymore. So I had to sell my practice because it was like, I need to tell people about this side of the world instead of what I'd been trained to teach on. So that's kind of how we got started in real estate.
And it's funny because I've actually met other people just from networking that sell these mutual funds and all this stuff. And it's funny, they say the same sort of thing. They'll talk to real estate folks. And the thing is, these mutual fund guys will often try to discourage these guys that want to pull money out of the mutual funds and put it into real estate.
I did, yes, because I didn't understand. I actually would tell clients, why would you want to invest in an asset class that pays you like 3% a year? That's all I knew. I didn't understand mortgage pay down. I didn't understand forced appreciation, that your tenants were paying your asset. I just didn't understand it in that level. I'm just thinking of your own personal home, right? That was the only thing I was thinking of. So yeah, I didn't understand it. And lots of people think that financial advisors are familiar with everything out there. They're not. They're familiar with what they're taught. And I was only ever taught, because the company I worked for, about mutual funds.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is that there's a whole system, and I used to work in that system too when I used to work in corporate.
Yeah.
And that system prescribed the whole thing about you work your 40 hours, and then there's a 401k, and they're going to match your 401k, and we're going to put money into the 401k for every dollar you put in. We're going to put in $1, and then if you wait 50 years, then maybe you'll have enough money to retire. Maybe God willing, you have enough money to retire, right? And that's everybody subscribed to that. I mean, I was one of those people, and I would imagine that for many of these advisors that are out there, they're not even totally aware of all the benefits that real estate has. And I think, but people like us, we're the competitors basically to those folks. That's how they see us anyway.
Yes, yeah, and they tell their clients that we're high risk investment as well compared to mutual funds, which is not true at all.
No, especially the way things are going right now with the dollar. I mean, at the time of this recording, we printed off $5 trillion of assets over the last 18 months, That's more than $1 for every $5 that's in circulation right now. It printed over 18 months. Ridiculous, right? So inflation is coming. You want to put your money into hard assets. So if anything, it tells me that you want to have your money in real estate. That's for certain. That is for certain.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Now let's take it all the way back, though. The one thing that many people they struggle with, of course, is raising money. And I know that you did a lot of deals of your own using other people's money, right? So maybe describe what sort of things did you do when you were first getting into those deals? What sort of tactics, questions? How did you win their trust? What did you do?
Well, one of the things I think I had going for me is I was very comfortable talking to people about money, and not just as in, I need your money for my deal. It's more than that. A person has to be really careful. You don't want to go in any kind of a needy basis. And so I learned that very early on, even when I was selling mutual funds. It's what I can do for them. And so I always pointed my presentation in how it would benefit them, not I see some people out there, they go, all these people out there got all the money and I don't have any and I need their money. Well, that's not a good pitch, So you really got to understand that you have the gold, and you have to have the gold, like not every deal is a good deal. So you have to understand that too. But when you can internalize and say, hey, I got the gold here, I'm offering you an opportunity to be part of that, then, and really.
Hey, Augustino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.
Really feel that, then that's when people want to invest with you. And big numbers are not it. You start talking big numbers to people, and lots of times we know the numbers can be big in real estate. But you share that with people and they automatically think high risk, high risk, high risk. And I think we're almost ingrained to think that way. If it's too good to be true, right? It probably is. And so that's the other thing. So the real key points there is don't overpromise and understand things from their point of view. Like they need to be educated very first with any deal.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things that wanted to highlight. The first thing is the deal itself. And I think it's probably where a lot of people fall flat. And it's not because they're bad people or anything else like that. It's because they don't have a deep understanding of what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. And that is having the knowledge of how to underwrite a deal, know that you have a good deal on your hands, know you're not overpaying for a deal and what the returns are going to look like because you're very familiar with the area and the type of asset it is. I find that, especially for people just starting out, they're not entirely, they don't really know. They don't understand it because they haven't gone through and analyzed the deal deep enough to know if it's a good deal or not. And so that's probably one of the first things that I tell my students anyway, is analyze at least 100 deals. And
that's the number I use too. Yes, 100, because it takes you a while to really understand. And, your first deal might look really good, but once you start digging deep and looking at 100 different ones, it's like, they have no idea. So 100 deals. That's what we were taught. Analyze 100 deals and you'll know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, these days, I think it's more like 200 because
it could be.
Some of these deals that I'm seeing, it's like they're way overpriced and the returns just aren't there, and people are still buying them regardless. So,
and the other thing too, Augustino, I think what happens too is people go to realtors and they want to buy investment real estate. And what they have to realize is that realtors are not taught to train them on how to buy rental real estate. They're taught how to sell real estate, and that's really it. There are definitely realtors out there, and the ones that we like to deal with, who own their own investment properties, so they really understand it. But their job is not to train you. They don't have time to train you. You have to go in knowing what you're doing when you're reaching out to those realtors.
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole other talk right there, right? It's like how do you crack that open, those discussions with those brokers, the people that have access to those deals, and it seems to me like they are the gatekeepers. They being the brokers, they are the gatekeepers to the deals. They are the gatekeepers. They're the ones that have the relationships. If you get in touch with a broker that's been in the market for a very long time, they're going to know who the active buyers and sellers are in that market.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be another. It's going to, especially for someone starting off anyway. That's going to be a tough nut to crack, because it's just you don't know who those people are, and when you do, you have to keep in mind that broker has a ton of other qualified buyers way ahead of that person starting out.
And you have to know what to say to them too. If you go in acting and asking questions like a brand new newbie, most cases they're not even going to return your call. They're not even going to answer your email. They're just going to ignore you. So you really have to know what to say too when you're approaching them.
Yep. 100%. And I think, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of upfront education in my mind anyway, a lot of upfront education that takes place before you even start picking up the phone and start talking to people. Right. Yeah. And that means mastering the lingo, understanding the deals, understanding underwriting, knowing the market, knowing the areas. What are the rents going for in that area? What's a renovated unit in that area going for? Are you confident you can raise the rents up by X number of dollars? What's that number based off of? I mean, all those different things. That's just before you even pick up the phone to talk to anybody.
Yes, and then when you're raising capital, like we're going to get into, also very important to know what investors are looking for and how to educate them, because let's say you found the most amazing deal out there, but if you go to your investor and blow them out of the water by saying the wrong things, that person might have been a perfect investor for you, but you didn't talk to them right from the beginning, and so you lose them. So that's also really important, knowing what to say so that you don't look like an absolute beginner and that you've never done anything before,
That's right. Yep, that's right. And I think that so let's say, for instance, right now you're at a point where you being the audience, you're at a point where you studied up, you trained up, you read a lot of books, you're going to LoopNet and you're underwriting deals. That's all you're doing is underwriting deals off of LoopNet. That's one thing that LoopNet is good for, is looking at deals and downloading some information on there and figuring out if you had a good deal on your hands or not. Mm-hmm. So great. So now what do? How do you pitch a deal? Right? And I think what many people don't realize, at least from what I found anyway, and Edna, feel free to chime in here, but this isn't something you just do, find a deal, then start picking up the phone and money just starts flying in. It's more like those people you're talking to need to know you. They need to know that they need to connect you as the individual with real estate over the past 12 months. Yeah. or over some period of time. Yeah. It isn't like you're Mr. IT network administrator on day one, and then day 20. Oh yeah, now I'm investing in real estate, Uncle Joe. So do you have $50,000 for me?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I work with my students on, is you've got to get yourself a professional image. You got to know what you're talking about before you start approaching any of these people. And first and foremost, education. When we're attracting investors, you got to educate them. Like we said before, August, people are coming to us from the mutual fund world, stock and bond world, term deposit world. They don't even understand. I, as a financial advisor, didn't understand at all. And so our very first thing is to educate them. How does this work, and why do we love it so much?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, and not only does it come down to just investing the deal itself, but also what's in it for them. I think it's one thing that many people get wrong, is that they turn it into what I need. Me as the guy that's trying to put the deal together. It's all about me, and I need $100,000 from you. I need $100,000 from you. I need. And the thing is, many people don't understand is that people don't care what you need.
Exactly.
They're looking for themselves first.
Yeah.
Right. They're looking for themselves first.
Yeah. And
I think that when you put the other person first, here's what's in it for you. You're going to get the tax deferred income. You're going to get the depreciation. We get to force appreciation. We get all these different great things. That's what you're leading with. You're not leading with I need this money for X. That to me is the wrong thing to do.
Totally agree with you, because they want to know first and foremost. And even when we're setting up presentations, most people lead out with, well, who am I? Let me tell you. No, that's an end thing. That's not a who am I. It might be a quick, hi, I'm Edna Keep. I invest in real estate. But the majority of the story comes later on, after you've provided them some value and what you can do for them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I think that if you're out there and you're trying to raise money, you target around what they need first. It's and the thing is, though, one thing that I recommend to people is find a deal that you might be comfortable buying. I recommend larger deals personally, just because of what's going on in the market these days with all this Corona COVID stuff. I think smaller deals are maybe at a higher risk unless you're running it yourself. That's my opinion. Just because people are able to just whip out the form and say, "Hey, you know what? I have COVID, so I can't pay rent this month," and that goes on for 3 months. Next thing you know, you're evicting them. That kind of stuff is happening. If you're on a smaller deal, you're at a greater risk, right? So you have to watch out for that. Unless you're running the asset and you have really landlord friendly area, then you should be okay.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, you have to be able to talk to those sorts of things, especially today. How do you combat those sorts of things? How do you protect the investment and how do you protect that equity that those investors are putting into it? Those are hard questions to answer. Those are tough questions. And you have to be able to handle that kind of stuff, because many people forget that what they're doing is these people that you're approaching to hand you their money, it's what I call their life units, right? They gave up a portion of their life for this money. They got to trust you with it. You're going to do the right thing with it. So it's one of those things that in my opinion, if you're going to execute it, you got to execute it right.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Oh, you know what? I totally agree. And it's all not always about you and them either. You have to have a team in place that can manage the deal, renovate the deal, property management, work with the tenants, all that kind of stuff. So one of the first things that we need to do too is build that team. Especially if you're looking at scaling in any way, shape, or form. I mean, taking our training, we went back, we were inducted into the Kiyosaki Hall of Fame, and we had 50 doors in 18 months. And people would say, how'd you do that? And I said, well, for one thing, we didn't property manage from day one. We knew that was not our strength, and we hired it out. So we don't deal with tenants or toilets ever. And I found that most people got stuck at 4 doors. And it was because they were doing the property management and they were, doing the renovations, going over and fixing the toilet on the weekends and whatnot around their regular job. And the biggest thing that's going to stop you from scaling is going in with that attitude that I can do it better than anyone else. And then maybe you can at the beginning, but it like you're saying with the larger deals, it's mandatory that you have those people in place. And it's a good thing for you. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. They're probably all way better at doing it than you are. And you get to focus on your sweet spot. And that's not property management and dealing with tenants.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, and you just touched on something too. That team, the first one you hire, and I shouldn't say hire, the first one you engage with is going to be property management. A good property management company. Yeah. That's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Because if you find a good property manager that has some clout in the area and they've done plenty of deals in the area too, then the investor's going to have some confidence in knowing that that asset's going to get taken care of.
Yeah,
it's going to someone's going to keep it on. That part is huge. But I think another big thing that people can also often do is to create a bit of a document to show the investors, hey, look, I want to buy an 80 unit apartment in this location, roughly for this amount of price we estimate it's going to be, and we anticipate it might be this amount of renovation. We're going to be able to get this amount of rent. These are the expected returns. Do you know somebody that might be interested in getting an asset like this or getting in on something like this? When you have something to show, some talking points, you get to feel out that person, and you get to feel them out if they're even interested in doing the deal, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not. And I think what many people get discouraged is that it takes a lot of those conversations, especially when you're starting out. A lot of conversations like that. They're not able to get their point across on the first, second, third, or even 10th discussion.
Yeah, sometimes, but if they're trained properly, they can.
Yes.
And once they learn, I had a student just started with me here in January, and he said to me, Edna, I couldn't even get a realtor to send me a deal. And once I learned the verbiage, and within 6 weeks, he had a property under contract. And, he said, all the difference in the world. I didn't even realize that I was asking wrong,
Yeah. And to your point that we just said there, it's not even because that person may actually have all the money. Maybe that person that made that phone call, they had cash in the bank, they got some trust, there was some trust fund baby or whatever, they got all the cash. It's if the broker doesn't think that that person can't close a deal, they just have to think that they can't close a deal. You're not getting a return call.
Or if they think that, oh, I got to train this guy and what a deal even is, again, the less work you can give that realtor, the more apt they're to share that deal with you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they like to pocket list them and stuff like that. So they have their own buyers already. So you have to do some talking before they're even going to consider you.
Yeah, and gain their trust. That's going to be huge too. The one thing that I tell my students anyway, is that if it's a brand new contact, you talk to them once or twice, and then they immediately sent you a deal, be very suspicious of that deal.
Exactly.
Always be suspicious of that deal, because it could be a bad deal. They just want you to overpay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to, and then the other thing they got to realize too is just because you spoke to them once or twice doesn't mean they're ever going to remember you 3 years down the line. You have to stand in front of them somehow.
Yeah, and that part is huge. There's brokers that I talk to. I literally talk to a group of brokers every single day. Now I'm working on a bunch of deals right now, so I have a reason to talk to them.
Yeah.
But there's some brokers I haven't done business with in a while, and I'll invite them to, hey, want to grab a drink? I'm having a get together with a bunch of other brokers. You should stop by.
Yeah.
And just establishing those connections and staying at the top of mind is very, very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
So true. And you know what? Same with investors too, because an investor that doesn't have money to give you today doesn't mean he won't have money to give to you in a year, especially once he's seen you do a few deals, they might pull equity out of their home. The other thing, like with capital raising, is you have to educate people where they can find the money. A lot of people don't think they have any money till you talk about equity in their home or equity in their business or different stuff like that. So it's helping them find their own money too. Yeah. That makes a difference.
What sort of other places do you mention besides the home equity and other places? What other places do you find that there's money that's, quote, lost?
Well, we've used a registered plan money where people just don't even think they can do anything with it, but they can. So different stuff like that. Vendor financing is a big one that a lot of people forget about too. I always say vendors are predisposed investors, because especially if there's somebody who's retiring, they're already know, like, and trust real estate. They don't want to put their money in the bank. They don't want to put their money in mutual funds. But again, they're not going to just give it to you. Some of them, like the verbiage and everything is so important to talk about. But you can get a lot of vendor financing and have very little of your money in the deal because of it, if you know how to talk to them properly.
Excellent. Now, one thing that we spoke about briefly in the green room was just about the mindset. And I think that that's probably one of the other things. And we have a show that talks about the mindset as well. But I find that the mindset is the basic underlying setup for everything that comes above it. Capital raising, sales, marketing, of course, the real estate aspect. But without the mindset, without it being right, it becomes extremely difficult to really achieve your goals and really get to where you want to go. So let me just explore that for just a second. What sort of things are you doing these days to help, I guess, stay focused on where you're going? And how do you keep your mindset really strong when you're in challenging times?
Well, one of the things I teach my students is, the power of autosuggestion and affirmations. If you keep telling yourself, I am never going to find a deal, or I can't find. How many times do we hear people say that, Augustino? I just can't find a deal. The market's shitty. I just can't. I can't find an investor for the life of me. Well, the more you tell yourself that, guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen to you. So it starts by, convincing yourself first. Yes, I got a great deal here. Yes, I can find investors. And over again, I give them even a manifesto to say to themselves every single day. And I tell them, and don't you ever tell me I can't find a deal. People are finding a deal every single day. So, stop that right now. So that's a big thing.
It's 100% true. There's a friend of mine who's actually a broker, and I would check in with him every so often and say, "Hey man, how's it going? You have any deals?" I ask every single broker, "Hey, you have any deals for me?" Every single time I'll call the same broker 3 times a day, like because we're just, any deals? Got a deal for me? Got a deal? Got a deal for me? Got a deal for me?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
this guy would always be like, "Oh, the market. Oh my God, the market's terrible." Blah blah blah. Well, I I had some problems with my car. I had to go into it was raining outside, so I had to go into a bar so I could make a phone call. And I walk into this bar to use the phone, and they have a phone booth in this place. And there he is, sitting there at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday, right? I'm like, it's 2 in the afternoon. You should be on the phone trying to find deals for me. How can you tell me there's no deals? You're sitting here drinking with your buddies. What's going on? I busted his chops about it. But this is the kind of guy that'll do this kind of stuff, right? And it's part of it is taking action, right? Affirmations, 100%. I do them myself,
Yeah, I do too every day.
every day. It's like clockwork. But I think a big part of it too, though, is also taking that action to work towards those goals that you're writing down, and really putting it at the center of your being to make sure that you can actually hit it, right? And
Yeah.
taking that action, you have to take that action. That's the big part.
And it starts with setting that goal, that big goal, and because you have to have a target too, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, and I'm just curious, when you're having your students draft their affirmations, are you personally reviewing their affirmations too, or are you just counting on them to say, yeah, I did it? Like, how do you do it?
I give them I do an onboard call as soon as they come on with me, and we spend 30 minutes on mindset stuff alone. That I tell them, if you do this every day for the rest of your life, you will never ever run out of deals, money, and you'll be super wealthy someday. But you can't just do it once in a while and think it's going to work for you. So I record the call, I give it to them, and I go, if you ever start things aren't happening for you, go back and listen to this call and tell me what it is you're not doing. And don't, like, there's when we talk about, of course, every week as well, mindset and how important it is, but that's setting people up for success. And it all starts with, what do you say when you talk to yourself, right? And if you tell yourself you're going to find great deals, you're going to meet great people, guess what? You are. And the opposite works too.
Yeah. And you know what? It's even more than just writing the affirmations and following through with that. I think another key thing to realize is that the music you listen to, the books you're reading,
Yeah.
the people you hang out with,
Yeah.
all of this will have a direct influence on your success or failure. If you're listening to a lot of music with hate, negativity, all that kind of stuff, that will seep into your subconscious. Even if you have a strong shell and you know where you're going, it'll break through.
Mm-hmm.
It'll
Yeah.
break through.
Yeah.
It's amazing what music, especially music, will do. I mean, our species has been around for a couple 100,000 years at this point, and we primarily use music and stories to move information from one generation to the next prior to writing.
Yeah.
And it's a very powerful way to move information, good or bad, down the line, which has led us to where we are today. A lot of negative stuff has been really transmitted through the years, through the decades, and many people are in dire need of that freedom, and everybody's always looking for that freedom, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are. And that the music just generates a feeling in you too. And I've seen it happen actually in my kids, even playing video games. They get anxious and almost angry, so you have to limit that, because anything that causes those kind of feelings inside you is not good for you.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I can imagine that one question many people have on their minds right now is, I know you did that first deal, you're able to generate 5,000 in passive income. can you maybe describe that deal and really how were you able to do that $5,000 a month? I'm just curious.
Well, it was actually an assortment of deals. The last deal in that 5 years was a 24 unit under one roof. Before that, it was duplexes, single family homes, stuff like that. So each property gave us a couple $100, the smaller ones. Then when we got into the 24 units, it was like $300 or $400 a door, and that's what made the difference for us and took us to the 5,000 a month. But yeah, we did start. We actually started out with condos, which is a lot of people do. And for us, the reason was we didn't want to deal with tenants or toilets. And they had a program where they kind of, they kept a portion of the income and you went into a pool, all these different things. But those were all things that just took some of the fear away to get us started.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, and maybe, and for some people, I know that I was railing on the whole small deals thing earlier. For some people, you know what, they want to start small. They want to do that. I guess you can certainly do it. Just got to be very, very careful, and you really have to know how to underwrite and run that deal effectively. Because I guess something else we were talking about in the green room too. Everybody's in this mad rush to buy multifamily. I think that it's easy to buy multifamily. It's hard running it for 10 years profitably. That's hard.
Yeah,
it's very, very hard.
That's when the work comes in once you own it, right?
Yeah, you can say that again. We have a lot of units ourselves here, and I would love to say that I don't have to do anything but lie on the beach and do nothing all day. There's work involved. There's
passive income's kind of a misnomer in real estate, but it's still less work than a 9 to 5.
Oh, 100%. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I mean, here we are. We're in the middle of an afternoon here. You and I can sit here and talk about it, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
We can set our own schedule and have these discussions. Other people just can't.
Exactly.
And until they build that passive income with real estate, that to me is the only way. I did the whole corporate thing just like you did, and I would not have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I always like to remind this people too, like, have you ever played the Cashflow 101 game that Robert Kiyosaki put out?
Once, a long time ago.
You know what? It's just so real life, and I just love that game because when you flip that board and you're out of the rat race, it just feels so good. Now all of a sudden you're getting access to larger and larger deals, and a deal will pay you $5,000 a month, and people can't fathom that when they're in the rat race. Like, it's like, oh, I made $100 a month. Oh, great! But you know what? When you flip that board, it's like, wow, it's just amazing. And that's what I want for people is, get those bases covered. That $5,000 a month is what it was for us. And then from there, doors will just open up for you.
Yeah. Edna, I'll tell you a story. When I first rented my first condo, when I moved from Michigan to Virginia to take a job out there a long time ago, and I had to rent out the condo to some lady, and I got my first check, and I realized, like, oh my God, I didn't do anything. I just got paid. It's like, oh wow, imagine that. It blows your mind at first, right? Because it's totally outside the norm that we were taught, that you have to go work somewhere. You have to go somewhere, sit there for 8 hours, 8 to 10 or 12 hours, whatever it is, and give up your personal life units that you'll never get back up to some dude. And that's going to take it, and they're going to make their money off of you.
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of living.
Absolutely is.
Yeah. So now, Edna, for someone listening right now, what sort of bulletproof advice would you offer to them if maybe they're trying to raise money?
You have to get a mentor and a coach to help you, because that short circuits your learning curve like crazy. If you can read 1,000 books, you can study till the cows come home, but until you're working on a live deal, none of it's going to feel real for you anyway. And a coach can walk you through that and hold your hand through the whole aspect of it. And to me, I've had a coach since 1999. Back when I was a financial advisor, I hired my first coach. And how I ended up hiring a coach was, our company had just been bought by a larger company, and they took us to Scottsdale, Arizona, this nice fancy area, and they were showing us, like, we got to meet all the real high income earners, like $1 million+ a year. And they put us all in the same room, And one of the time, somebody was on stage, a coach, and he said, "How many in here have a coach?" And I looked around, and it was all the high income earners that I'd met. And I went, "Okay, well, that tells me something. I'm going to go hire a coach." I went and hired a coach. I was making $100,000 a year at the time, and I hired a coach for 10 grand. And I've never looked back, and I've never been without a coach since, because the learning curve is just that much quicker if you're dealing with somebody else's experience. And the coaches that I hire gotta have been there, done what I want to do. I don't need a cheerleader coach or anything like that. I need somebody who can show me short circuit ways that I can get to my next level.
You made your 10 grand back in no time.
Oh, no time. The first few ideas I got, I went from, just to tell you, 67,000 a year to 187,000 a year, from a part-time to full-time financial advisor, because I started part-time, and it was based on what I learned.
Yep. And coaching does that. I tell people the same thing. It's for the small investment you're going to make, they're going to open up all kinds of doors for you. All kinds of doors. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, guys, if you want to reach out to Edna, you can reach her through her website at ednakeep.com. It's got a lot of great material on there too as well. So go ahead, check it out, reach out to her if you need some help. Okay. She's got a great program. Hope you got some insight on how you could raise capital. And of course, the power of mindset. It's huge when it comes to building success in this business. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Hey, Augustino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.